Hello friends, welcome back to another part of our run through the Frosty DLC and Oxygen Not Included. Just in case you are new here, here's the rules for the run. We have to play on the Frosty DLC. We're playing in the base game, by the way. We have to get every single achievement, assuming that they are all possible, and we have to take 100 duplicates, which we've already done. So with our population at 100, this video is going to be a couple of different things. For one, I'm going to do a little recap and kind of show what goes into running an entire colony of 100 duplicates. But we're also probably going to get up our rocket setup. We're about ready to start with that layer of tech. So in the meantime, I've been hollowing out a huge part of the map to get ready for this. So I'll show you how I usually build my rockets, and we'll start launching some missions within this video. But in the meantime, let's talk about a couple things that have changed. For one, I just wanted to make my kitchen setup a little bit more efficient, so I built this. This is a better kitchen setup than what we had before because it's 2 levels and it has all these different things all crammed in here and all fully reachable by auto sweepers. The way I had it before, duplicates had to run stuff back and forth all the time. So when there's a big rush of food that needs to be done, like say a big batch of meat or something like that gets finished, or seafood or something like that, it would take them a little while to get things done. So this helps them work a little bit faster, freeing them up to potentially do other things like generate power if we needed it. We're going to do a couple of adjustments to this as well with the new space that we have, but we'll do that later. The other thing that I did adjust is our Sleet Wheat farm is now just larger. So same design as before, just have some pipes running in here to cool down these metal tiles that are down here, and then some doors that will connect to those metal tiles if we actually need the cooling. If we don't, the doors prevent the cooling from being sent up here because you can't transmit energy through a vacuum. So there you go. I also did add another beefalo chamber. I know they're not called beefalo, but let's call them beefalo. I did get advised to create another one of these, and I agree this is a good idea to start this up right now, especially because we don't have enough phosphorite. So my phosphorite production was very low, and I was really starting to run out. So I dug up some of these emergency pike apples we had planted. And if we need more emergency food, honestly, we could start up mealwood farms down in this bottom area. Because mealwood and pike apples are pretty similar, like in terms of food quality and quantity and stuff like that, and we have plenty of dirt to push that, so we could probably start that up instead if we start running too low on phosphorite, so that'll be the plan for that. Also, from the last video, we did our geothermal pump, so that's all up and running, and right now the state of everything is pretty stable. So we have this one running. We have this bottom one running, looking like this. I still need to pump out all this petroleum and stuff. I'll do it eventually. And we have this one running, and also need to pump it out from here. So there you go. Pretty straightforward setups here. Just some simple steam turbines feeding in water to the pump, and then it comes out of the vent every once in a while. So there you go. It's generating a good amount of power for us. We have 9 steam turbines running from this. You could honestly probably run more than that. I'm guessing you could probably run 15, considering the max for one of these lines connected to these steam turbines is 5. So we could probably get 15 up if we really wanted to, but I don't really need that much power. And I don't know, I don't really want to rebuild all of it to add those. So there you go. Being lazy. All right, let's get to the recap. So 100 duplicates. We have a lot of things going on here, so we'll kind of speed run a lot of it. And we'll talk about the different things that are going into this. So number one is our food. The variety of food that we have going through right now is pretty large. So there's a lot of pike apple skewers, but that's kind of like, they'll only eat that if there's nothing else to eat. So that's a little bit of a like buffer to make sure we don't run out. We also have pemmican, which is basically a combination of these seals and these mammoths for the most part, just meat and this tallow that these produce. We have squash fries out there, so we're making quite a bit of the plume squash right now. And that's because we have a good amount of ethanol, mainly because we have a lot of wood coming out of these flocks. And these flocks produce wood, and it's being distilled down into ethanol, which is being cooled by our giant cooling setup to feed our plume squashes. So we have a lot of ethanol. This is all full of ethanol right now, and I can't spend it fast enough. So honestly, if we need to uproot a bunch of this pike apple, we could also just replace it with plume squash. But the issue I've been running into recently is the tallow is like surprisingly rare considering how efficient it is, because I have so many things that are relying on it. So every once in a while I'll just go, as you guys like to say, club some seals so we can get some tallow out of it. But we do it a little bit more gently than this. We just kind of zap them until they decide to pop. So there you go. Alright, so what else do we have for our food? Oh, by the way, here's our little seal area producing enough eggs to keep this running. So there you go. We have pancakes. The pancakes are a combination of eggs and sleet wheat. So the pancakes are coming from all the excess eggs that are coming out of this. Mostly phlox eggs, but it's also some spigot pup eggs. Sometimes some pip eggs are in here, so they all get cracked at our little setup right here, and then we turn them into pancakes using our sleet wheat and our raw egg. So there you go. That's a good amount of stuff. Excellent fruit still left over from a long time ago. I don't know why we still have that. Oh, it's actually probably because we just recently dug out the bottom. So there you go. Yeah, the other thing is going to be some stuff on the deep fryer. So it's going to be mostly shellfish. So I do have a setup running for these, I forget what they're called. Sandy shells, that's right. I also am just manually coming over here to have them donate their meat to me. So little couple manual steps going on right now, but yeah, that's kind of the background of all of our food that's going on. There's also some naturally growing food around here, like the nosh beans and stuff like that. I've just mostly left them alone so that we can get the extra food production. So yeah, that's what goes into our food. Our oxygen, we have a handful of sources. This is the main thing that we built a couple videos ago. All of it is being cooled down through this giant like freeway of oxygen stemming from all of our electrolyzers. We've got that. We also have a lot of production coming from these alveo vera plants because we're producing so much carbon dioxide, and we have a lot of ice. We might as well use it. So it's all fairly automated. My duplicants just need to get down here every once in a while and harvest these. So when they do, all of the oxalite is basically shipped out to a few locations. Let me get into our shipping screen really quick. So these things are full of oxalite. So I will send them to all the little satellite colonies that we have, which we have one here, one here. We have one for the somnium synthesizer, and we have one at the bottom. The game's loading right now. We'll just kind of distribute it that way with our oxygen. There is still a rusty oxidizer or two out here that my duplicants will manually load as we get the supplies for it. So I think it's just these two right now. Funnily enough, we still have these loose electrolyzers out here, so that's pretty interesting. And then I guess a very small contributor is all this polluted water that's slowly gassing off, and that we're getting a little bit of clay from, that I guess we could use for ceramic a little bit later. So let's see, cooling we've already talked about, mostly just opportuners and steam turbines, nothing too fancy there. We've talked about this a bunch of times, and that's really a straightforward, or not straightforward, but like a essential thing to know if you want to get some real industrial strength cooling going on. So that's kind of the basis of that. And honestly, like, our base temperature is all been quite low this whole time. So the only warmer parts are all sectioned off from the rest of the base, and I've just kind of left all the rest of the asteroid at its natural temperature, and most of it was cold. You can see it starts to get a lot warmer once you get to the bottom because there's some warmer biomes. But for the most part, I'm just trying to maintain what it was at before and what it started at. So yeah, got that going. Power-wise, we're running on quite a few things. We have a lot of solar panels that are running at pretty low efficiency, honestly, but every little bit helps. We have some solar panels that are still being powered by our Mercury. So the Mercury that we're using up is still running all of these solar panels at full power. So I'm pretty impressed with this. This is quite strong. I'd say if you're playing in the Frosty DLC, this is like almost a necessity to run this. It's gotten a lot of mileage for us. Then, because we just got our geothermal stuff up, we have these steam turbines running at full power pretty much around the clock. So we have quite a bit of power flowing from this. Shipping. Shipping is a system that we set up a long time ago. It's all this stuff. And somebody specifically wanted me to talk about the automation and shipping correlation here. So I'll just review what we have. These little satellite colonies, these duplicants are like trapped in here. They're not allowed to leave. But that also means they're going to need supplies every once in a while. So for the supplies that I want them to have, why are you Starving. Oh, this isn't a room. Fix that. So the supplies that they are going to be asking for, I'm asking for like dirt, iron ore. I was asking for rust and salt, not really so much anymore. And then any leftovers. But this ribbon cable that's here is basically connected in a way that I can ask for these certain resources and put them all on one shipping line. So the idea here is this ribbon cable is basically reading 4 different inputs for 4 different weight plates. And this weight plate is telling me whether I need to ask for more of a certain resource. And I know it'll be for a certain resource because as it comes up this shipping line, it's all connected in kind of a snaking fashion here. And these are set to the type of thing that I want to land on the weight plate. So basically a combination of those things is going to get us a system so that we can send all the supplies that we would need for one colony on one single shipping line instead of like 5 or whatever it might be otherwise. So we've got that. The ribbon cable is basically, it will store 4 automation inputs on one line, and then I will read them and connect them up to these bins. These bins will only dispense if we need more of that certain thing. So this is asking for rust, this one's asking for salt, and I built them in the same order just so it wasn't so confusing. So yeah, that's kind of how those are working. By the way, as far as automation type of stuff is concerned, there's a lot of little pieces here and there that are connected together. And I will go over automation. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time finding this. I will go over automation in like a more holistic, like tutorial-y type of video very soon. I'd realized the one that I have is old and it's like, I don't know, 2 hours long. That's like way too long to really get all that stuff to sink in. So we'll cover that again, especially because a lot of people tend to have issues with automation. I know it can be kind of confusing and a little bit overwhelming, especially when you're looking at something like this and being like, whoa, this looks crazy. But it's really not that wild, honestly. But it's only because if you understand the smaller little pieces, everything kind of lines up. Okay, so I hope that was a satisfactory little recap of how this base is running. Not really that much else to mention here, honestly. My duplicates aren't that, like, spec'd up. Honestly, I've been slacking on some of our skills because, I don't know, I guess I don't really pay attention that much over time. But eventually, with some of these duplicates, like, you don't need that many skills for them, all things considered. Like, I don't need that many duplicates that are good at decorating or cooking, for example. I have enough cooks as it is already. Same with, like, researching. I'm basically done with the research tree, except for a couple more things for rockets or doctoring. Like, there's a whole bunch here that I won't really need. So an ideal duplicate kind of, like, has good digging and building. They're capable of ranching. They could potentially do mechatronics, although that's not necessary all the time. They have extra strength from these 2 skills. That's pretty much it that I would consider essential. So I don't have the most wild duplicate living quarters. I just have a great hall. It's connected to a nature reserve, so they have to go through the nature reserve in order to... Oh, I'm not actually shipping their food there anymore, so I guess they're not really getting the benefit of this anymore. I didn't even think about that. I guess that's why you go back over it. But I have that. I have their great halls, and their bedrooms are just regular. There's no recreation buildings. Bathrooms are pretty normal. So they do... Oh, they go through this nature reserve. That's right. They have to go through it to get to the bathrooms. So, yeah, pretty straightforward, I would say. I guess. Maybe I'm just used to looking at it for too long. Our little production area has a lot of stuff connected to our cooling, so we're actually getting energy off of the heat that's generated from these metal refineries. Yeah, lots of stuff going on. I don't know if I'm going to talk about this stuff out here that much. I talked about this a lot in the DLC, and it's interesting, and I'm getting it set up in kind of a similar way. But honestly, like, ranching flocks and distilling the ethanol down and cooling it is probably a lot more efficient than any of this stuff. So this biome's interesting. I don't know if it's as powerful as I would like for it to be, just because it takes so long to get set up. So, yeah. All right, anyway, that's enough recapping. Let's move into our rocket setup. So our rockets are going to need to be at an area that's pretty carved out. So I'm going to want to create something that is... And I have a whole bunch of tungsten for this, by the way. I like using the tungsten because it can resist heat very well. And these rockets are going to get really hot. So I like to basically make a setup that can harvest a lot of the heat that comes off of these rockets. And eventually we'll have to get to a point where it's like at the bottom. We'll kind of consider this like the bottom area. The setup is going to be, our rockets are going to be like in this. And I'm putting them kind of nearby so my duplicants don't have to travel so far in order to interact with them. You could put them out here if you wanted to, but this will also help us capture heat and convert it into energy. Not that we're really having a hard time, but I guess I would recommend that if you're planning on doing something like that. So I'm just going to create a big line of metal tiles first, and then right next to those I'm going to create a bunch of insulated tiles. This is going to be so that we can convert the heat into energy, because we're going to have a big steam setup down here that will absorb all the heat from the rocket exhaust and stuff. And the metal tiles will help convey all of that heat. So anywhere that has these metal tiles, like this is now, we can assume this is going to be like a big steam area. So I need to dig this out. And we can get that steam area rolling by some aqua tuners. So I will do that, and we will make some progress in terms of like getting a bunch of steam out there. The other option that I'm kind of wondering is we could pump it out from here. So like we could provide some new water to the geothermal pump, and we could pump our steam up here and just get it filled up that way, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just run the aqua tuner and call that good. So yeah, we'll create a big steam setup here. And I'm going to also encase this in metal tiles, so just something like this. There we go. I'm not sure if this is deep enough. We might need to go a little bit further. No, I think it's probably okay. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So we're going to do this, and then we're also going to encase that in insulated tile. So something like this will be for our rocket setup. And we'll get all this built out. We'll at least get the shell up. Then we can start talking about getting the actual rockets themselves, and we'll get steam up, and we will go on from there. But that's going to be the general shape and idea. I'm going to need to also clear out all this and extend this metal tile, or at least the insulated tile, up to a point that we're not going to get any heat crossover from one side to another. Because I still am getting some benefit off of having this, and there's no reason to waste it if I don't have to. So yeah, I'll get the rest of the like shell of this built out. Then we'll go from there, and we'll start setting up our first rockets and start running some rocket missions. Okay, now that we've got our shell up, kind of started our cooling setup down here, as you can tell, just so we could get some time on running some ethanol in here. It's going to take a little while to fill everything up. Most things are filled. We will run a new line of... Actually, I think I have some nectar. Yeah, I was going to fill everything else up with nectar because I don't really have another purpose for it. We have all of the plastic made that we're probably going to need for the rest of the game, so we're just going to split this between a few tanks to get this all filled up the rest of the way. So most of this is filled up with nectar, at least in terms of inside the tanks, and then the medium will just be ethanol to exchange all the temperature here. So there we go. Let's get a few more things built out on this. Like I mentioned, this was all going to be steam so that the rocket exhaust could be absorbed, or rather, the temperature from the rocket exhaust could go into something that we could then use for energy. So this will all be steam eventually. We don't have a lot of water right now, honestly. We're using up pretty much everything that we produce. So we are capturing this now, and this polluted water vent is feeding into this liquid, or set of liquid reservoirs, so that we can just store it somewhere. So we are getting some more water introduced into the network, and now that this is finally erupting, we can take advantage of it. One of the best vents in the game, I can't stress that enough. This is really good. This is also running at pretty much capacity. This is dormant right now. This one's also dormant, so we definitely need another source of water. Getting the last little bits of it off the map is the next thing we're also going to want to do to make sure that we can stabilize on this, but... yeah, lots of duplicants asking for lots of water, since we need a lot of oxygen production. Alright, anyway. So we'll fill that up with water eventually, once we have enough. But just to spec out the rest of this, we're going to need a place to cool all this steam so that we can get energy off of it, and obviously not heat things indefinitely. So we'll create a room that looks something like this. Let me see how big this is and how many steam turbines we can fit. I ideally want like 3. It looks like this was perfect because we need one more spot for the vents and stuff that'll fill this up. So yeah, something like this ought to work for the steam turbines. Then I'm going to also spec out a place that we can put some suits and get into this area to perform some maintenance if we need to. Or when we need to. It's just a matter of time at this point. If I have to run over some sleet wheat by this phase of the game, I'm probably okay with it, but I don't know how much space that I need. And again, we need to double liquid lock these just so that we are not exchanging temperature between this hot, super hot steam and super cold area outside here. So just going to double liquid lock that and then put up some suits. I guess we'll just plow through all this stuff since it's kind of in the way now. And then we will get it set up in a way that we have enough suits to get in there and maintain it when we need to. And then from the top of this all the way up to the steam turbines is where we could close off the rest of this so that the steam can all be absorbed up here. Throw up some ladders like that. Throw up some ladders? That would be horrible. Come on. So once we get it, all this stuff built out, that'll be a good start here. The actual rockets themselves, I think we should build them before we put all of our suits up here, because we're going to want to put some double liquid locks and suit banks up here as well, but there's no reason to force them to use the suits until we actually have this lid taken off. So we can do this a little bit early and start getting the rest of our infrastructure all set up in the first place. The good thing about this is we don't need a ton of infrastructure around this in terms of like how to move supplies into a rocket. All we're really going to need is how to move supplies out of a rocket, because we're going to be bringing stuff back, but it's not like we're going to go settle somewhere else, considering this is just the base game. So that's at least an upside of this. So let's get this all fleshed out. I guess once we have the duplicants clear this part, we can put down the steam turbines for one. We also will have a bunch of cooling down here, so we can use that for our steam turbines that'll be sitting inside this. And I'm debating whether to make another separate oxygen setup just for these suits. I think I'll do it because I don't want to disrupt the rest of the base's oxygen that much. So I think I'll create another small little oxygen setup over here, which again will be another little strain in our water. And we'll use this to cool it down. Same thing as before, we'll just run some pipes through it to make sure that it's usable. Although, I don't know how much we really need to cool it because it's going to be going into suits anyway. I just don't want to like impact the rest of the surrounding area. Yeah, so that'll be the plan with this and all the little support things that we need for the rocket area. So let me fill this up with water. Let me get a little oxygen setup going down here. We'll set up a suit bank. We'll get this all closed off and we'll get this turning into steam as soon as possible. The actual rocketry itself, we're going to start building in just a bit, but I need to clear out all these ladders. So I did build these ladders. Oh, and I'm doing it a way I don't want to do it. I did build these ladders kind of like with 3 spaces in between so that deleting the upper level is really easy for these duplicants. So if I start like way up here, we can start by just deleting that row of ladders, and we can continuously delete ladders as we go. We're also going to need gantries, but we'll cover that when we're able to build out the entire rocket. So let's just focus on the steamy part first, and then we will move on to getting the rocket up and getting the rest of this built out. Alright, here we go. We've got parts of our system up and good. We are just vacuuming out this bottom area. We will turn on our steam, or rather our steam turbines, our aqua tuners as soon as we have enough water in here and when all the other gases are out. So we'll get this going. Let's build our rocket though. Now again, this is only base game, so this is going to look a little weird if you're used to spaced out, but in the base game, the rockets basically just go right on the ground. So I'm going to put them right on top of these metal tiles because they will put all their heat down here into the steam when they have their big plume when they blast off. They're going to head straight out here. I'm getting the rest of this all cleared out. I'm going to split this in half so that the duplicants that are living up here are going to maintain the top for what little maintenance needs to be happening up here. Just so my duplicants from the bottom don't need to travel as far. And so we can work without suits for as long as possible. So we're just going to start with the steam engine. As far as I remember, we can handle 5 research modules on top of a steam engine. So we're just going to build them up like this. And then the command capsule at the top. No reason to build interiors or anything like that in the base game. So we're just going to slap down gantries at each one of these points along the rocket so that my duplicants can actually reach out there and build stuff. These gantries need to be powered. We're just going to power them with our heavy watt wires. We'll just kind of run it up like this. Not sure if these will eventually melt, and if they do, we can replace them. And we will eventually put suits here for our duplicants to get in and out of this area. So let's start planning that out. I'll do the exact same thing as we did down here. So this suit bank is just to enter the bottom part, so that they can maintain anything inside here that we might need to. Top part is going to look exactly the same. So we're just going to do something very similar. There we go. Something like this. And we'll fill this up with some more mercury, because mercury can resist heats quite high. The middle is, of course, going to be vacuumed out, so we're not exchanging any temperature between the two sides. My duplicants can get everywhere to maintain all this stuff, but we might as well do this so that we can at least plan out where our heavy watt wire can run in, like this. There we go. And we won't need to, like, set up any joint plates or anything like that and risk exchanging temperatures at places that we don't want to. So something like this for the gantries. You can set up some more complicated automation. We're just going to keep it simple again with what we're going to do down here. So just going to use some tungsten to set up a switch for automation to open and close these gantries so that we don't need to repair them every single time that we blast off. So yeah, something like this. This was what we were building towards with all the steel that we were creating. So yeah, that ought to do it for at least our first rocket. I have been using our telescope, which I'll show in just a second, to start researching out the different points that are out here in space. So the way that the star map works in the base game is you just get these little locations and your rockets get sent there to examine what's there. And those research modules will do all this stuff. They'll basically figure out what kind of stuff is here and what kind of rare resources are here. So if we want to go back and mine them later, that's what they're going to contain. So we can build probably a couple of these. So each time that we build a rocket, we could just do another ladder up, kind of like this, and then build a second rocket right next to it. And there's no reason not to run a couple missions at a time if we can afford it. I mean, we have plenty of duplicants, and we'll have plenty of steam and all that kind of stuff once we get everything rolling. But yeah, something like this. We could potentially even put a third one up, but let's just start with the two for right now. Not sure how our steel stands. We're going to have a little bit of a lime problem, as we're not producing any more steel right now until we get more lime, so we're looking for that right now. We might need to start sending up some of the fossil that we're getting from the bottom, because the fossil is very available in this oil biome. It's one of the strongest things that's in here, but it's obviously very hot, so we might need to run it through our setup here to cool it down. So I'm going to start asking for stuff that needs to be swept out of here. And anything that needs to be swept is just going to be dropped right here. And then the things I actually want out, like we could just set fossil right here. Let's just do this. There we go. We're probably also going to need diamond eventually. Let's ask for that. And then that will get routed up via this conveyor rail up through our little cooling setup that we have going on right now. And eventually up into our base so that it can get sorted out. So that'll help us out on that front. A couple other small things that have happened. I did start a nosh sprout farm, mostly because our ethanol is actually pretty out of control. We have a lot of ethanol to go around, and these are a little bit easier to grow, only because their body temperature doesn't require things as low as the plume squash. They require the same supplies otherwise. They'll take tallow, because we're going to be turning them into these nosh noms. These things, so there you go. Yeah, so just kind of supplementing our food with that so we can get rid of some of the pike apples that we have planted around here. You can see we're still really struggling for phosphorite. We may need to actually cut back on how many phloxterariums we have, so our food shape is still changing over time, which is bound to happen as things start to stabilize, so we'll kind of figure that out. But yeah, we need a little bit of time to get all this stuff built up. We'll take the lid off here in just a minute as soon as these duplicants out here can clear everything out. I'll probably wait to bring the suits out until after we sweep all this stuff out of here too. So once we take the lid off, all this debris is going to fall, and I'd rather have this than just let it get so hot that we can't really use it. So yeah, we'll get to a point where when we're ready to launch, we'll come back and we'll launch it. Then we'll probably call it good for this video, but we do need a little bit of time to vacuum stuff out and get steam and all that fun stuff, so we'll do that in just a bit. Alright, here we go. We're pretty much filled up on one of these rockets, and I think I'm just going to launch these one at a time, because it's going to take a little while to fill up multiple. And we're not going to be doing much more than what I'm going to be doing in this video anyway, in terms of sending it to a certain destination. By the way, I said I would talk about the telescope, and I totally didn't. So here's the telescope. I just have it sitting next to one of these little terrariums that we have ranching seals, because nothing is going to be blocking its vision when it's right next to it. So there you go. Had to take out a tree here in the process, but I guess that's what you get if you want to start running an observatory. But we're just going to go to the shorter ones first. I do have 3 steam rockets. I'm pretty sure they can make it out to... I can't remember if they can make it out to here or here. So I'll run as many of them as I can before we need to switch to something else. We will need to start switching into petroleum fairly soon. So we'll get that going after we run these first few. But now that we have our rockets basically set up, we have a few of them that have... a few duplicants that have the rocket piloting skill. So I guess I'll just assign one of them to... fly this thing. So Abe is going to be our first pilot, just because he's in alphabetical order, and that's how you should choose all of your astronauts. So, we've got that on the way. Let's get this set up to go to a different destination. This is rocket number 1. I don't have very exciting names for these, because I'll just forget which one is which anyway. And we will need... let's see... Can I not launch this rocket to this place? I guess I need to... ah, man, I never remember how to use this UI, because this UI is so goofy. Which one? Okay, it doesn't have an astronaut yet. Okay. I guess we need to wait until a duplicant gets there, but... another thing that I wanted to do with this, by the way, is there's a copper volcano sitting right next to our... rocket platform. So I guess that since this can all resist that heat, we might as well just open it up. I don't really see why not, so let's just go like this and open that up and let the copper flow in here. It will trigger our steam turbines. I don't know if it's really going to melt anything, but if it does, we can replace it with something that's more resistant to it. But yeah, I thought that was a little bit interesting. Never really tamed a volcano like that before, but I guess you could totally do that. No reason not to, I suppose. Let's see if this is ready now. Okay, yes. So, we're going to just launch this rocket towards that destination. And I guess Abe was already chilling in there. Oh, I forgot to bring back my gantries. You can tell I don't play the base game very often. But yeah, it'll damage your gantries if you don't pull them back like I probably should have. So, yeah, we'll make a mess here. So, all the rocket heat got put down into this steam, which is going to be the idea for pretty much all the other rockets that we do. We'll get a big steamy mess out here. We have this opened up to the ceiling. It's not going to be hurting any of these trees or anything like that, because it is kind of blocked off and far enough away from everything to cause any real damage. The other thing that I started doing is setting up a whole bunch of auto sweepers and circulating some very cold liquid to keep this stuff cooled down. That's something I probably should have done in the DLC as well, but I just didn't do it. But yeah, there you go, launching rockets. We're finally making some progress out there, and we just kind of get a progress bar in terms of how long it's going to take. So a few more cycles before it'll go there and come back. But that'll pretty much do it for this section of the run. Our next section, by the way, I'm planning on doing an achievement blitz to try to knock down as many of these achievements as we can. By the way, we did get one, so let's go ahead and figure out which one that one was. Oh, I guess we got 2. So launching a rocket, and the sweeper's taken over, and our UI is doing a dance for us. Gotta love Unity's UI system. Alright, so we have a bunch of things that we need to do here that we should probably cross off. It's just going to auto-scroll me down to the bottom every time. I can attest this is not very easy to do, but this is also pretty silly to be in this state. So we've got a lot of achievements here that we can... let me fight this! We've got a lot of achievements here that we can get in the next video, and I think we're just going to go through and get as many of them as we can in the next video to get that list down to as little as possible so that we are close enough to finishing. I think we're pretty close, by the way, so if we zoom out on our base, this is kind of what we're looking like. Not a whole lot more has changed recently. I did start vacuuming out parts of the map in order to help with performance. I know that strip mining does cause a lot more performance issues, so you're totally right about that for the people that have commented, but I'm doing it because I need the resources, and more specifically, I need the igneous rock. And it's a lot more convenient for me to do that and then vacuum out this section than it is to, like, build a setup to start cooling all this stuff. Anyway, next video, let's start targeting all these achievements. Hopefully our performance will be in a little bit better shape by then. And that'll be the plan, and I'll get that out in the next few days. So thanks for watching, and I will see you back here really soon.